A hand reaches out in the dark and closes around strangers. The man's whole arm goes rigid, like a cabal pulled tight. Rewind. 30 seconds. Chicago. From above, the city is a chessboard of rain-slicked light. Lake Michigan, black as oil. Among the towers, one hotel burns bright, a room so thick with money you can taste it in your teeth. The camera descends. Through the glass. Inside, a string quartet. Crystal, a swan carved from ice slowly melting. Medium shot. A woman in navy chiffon standing alone. Close up. A champagne flute trembling in her hand. The bubbles died long ago. Then she hears the laugh. The kind of laugh you recognize the way you recognize the sound of a car crash you were sitting inside of. Her whole body goes cold. Her feet won't move. She has to disappear from this room. Close up. Her hand reaches out. 5 fingers close around a stranger's, and the man turns his head. She reached for a stranger's hand to hide from her ex-husband. She didn't know what she'd just done. She didn't know the stranger was the most dangerous man in Chicago. She didn't know that in the next 90 seconds, her whole life was going to crack open. Elena Marsh was 31 years old, 6 months divorced, and on the night of October the 11th, in a ballroom at the Drake Hotel. She was about to learn that sometimes the smallest decision you make is the one that decides everything. The Drake Hotel ballroom that night was full of money the way some rooms are full of music. You could feel it in your teeth. Elena stood near an ice sculpture shaped like a swan. She was holding a champagne flute. The bubbles were going flat. Her hand wouldn't stop shaking. 6 months. 6 months since the divorce was final. 6 months since she'd packed 2 suitcases at 3 in the morning and called a car while her husband slept off a bottle of single malt. 6 months of silence in a small apartment in Lincoln Park. 6 months of takeout eaten on the floor with a rescue dog named Winston pressing his ribs against her thigh. She should have been home with Winston. She should have been in sweatpants, watching a documentary about somebody else's life, eating ice cream out of the carton, because nobody was counting anymore. Instead, she was wearing navy chiffon, heels that bit into the back of her ankles, a dress Bridget had zipped up 45 minutes ago, while making small noises of approval that sounded almost real. "You look gorgeous, Elle. I look like a couch. Stop. A nice couch. With expensive upholstery." Bridget Halloran had laughed and slapped her shoulder, and for a second, Eleanor had almost believed her. Almost. The string quartet was playing something slow, the kind of music that makes rich people feel they are doing something important by writing checks. The Gold Coast Charity Gala, $600 a plate, caviar nobody wanted, photographers from the Tribune drifting through the room like sharks who'd had their teeth filed down. Eleanor had been to one of these before, with him 3 years ago. Same hotel, same chandelier, different dress. She'd been thinner then, 12 pounds thinner to be exact, because Hollis had been weighing her every Sunday morning and writing the number in a little leather notebook he kept by the bathroom sink. She remembered the smell of that notebook, leather and his cologne. She remembered the way he would tap the page with his pen. "Up 2 pounds, Ellie. We talked about this." She took a sip of champagne. The bubbles were dead. She looked at her phone. 8:43. She could leave at 9. 9 was respectable. 9 meant she'd put in time. She would order a car. She would peel off this dress. She would let Winston put his enormous head on her stomach, and they would watch something with explosions in it, and she would forget she had ever been here. 20 minutes. She could survive 20 minutes. Then she heard the laugh. It came from her right, across the dance floor, past the ice sculpture, through the cloud of perfume and money and old cigar smoke that hung over the VIP tables like weather. A laugh she knew. The way you know the sound of a car crash you were inside of. Eleanor's whole body went cold. She turned her head, slowly. The way you turn when you already know what's behind you. There he was, Hollis Crane. In a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car, hair slicked back. That smile he used on investors, the one that worked on everybody for about 45 seconds. Standing at the bar with a woman who looked like she'd been assembled at a factory that only made one model. Blonde, tall, bones like a bird. He hadn't seen her yet. He was telling a story. Gesturing with his glass. The blonde was laughing the way women laugh when they're being paid to move. Eleanor thought, move. Her feet were not moving. Her feet were planted in the carpet like she'd been bolted there. The champagne flute was sweating in her hand. Her heart was hammering against the bodice of the dress so hard she was sure people could see it. Breathe, Ellie. She couldn't, because if she breathed, she'd cry. And if she cried, her mascara would run. And if her mascara ran, she would look exactly like the woman Hollis used to call her in the kitchen. When he'd been drinking, Penny, pathetic, that had been one of his favorites. She had to get out of this room. The main doors were behind her. But to get there, she'd have to walk past the photographers, past the senator's diamond, past 3 different conversations where people would look up at her and notice. And right now, Eleanor could not be noticed. Right now, Eleanor needed to be invisible. The side exit was past the VIP tables, past Hollis. She felt her knees lock. Bridget was somewhere across the ballroom, talking to a man who ran a hedge fund. Bridget, who had dragged her here. Bridget, who had said, you cannot keep hiding from your own life. Bridget, who had been her maid of honor and her divorce witness, and the only person who knew the bathroom story and the notebook story, and the night Hollis pushed her into the closet because she'd burned the salmon. Bridget was not here. Bridget was 40 feet away and 1,000 miles away, and Eleanor was on her own. She took a step backward. Her heel caught. She felt herself tilt. That's when she saw him. He was standing near a marble pillar, maybe 10 feet to her left, facing the windows, looking out at Lake Michigan and the lights along the shoreline, like the rest of the room didn't exist. A man in a charcoal suit, broad across the shoulders, the way a door is broad. Tall enough that he made the pillar look reasonable. He had his hands behind his back. He was completely still. In a room full of people who were performing being alive, this man was just standing there, quiet. The way a stone stands in moving water, Eleanor didn't think. Thinking was the thing she'd been doing for 6 months, and thinking had not gotten her out of this room. She moved 3 steps, maybe 4. The chiffon hissed against her thighs. Her clutch was slick in her left hand. With her right, she reached out, and her fingers closed around the man's hand. His hand was warm, calloused, enormous. The whole arm went rigid the instant she touched it, like a cable being pulled tight. She felt the muscles in his forearm coil under the wool of his sleeve, and for 1 electric second, Eleanor was sure she had just made the worst mistake of her life. He turned his head, slowly. His eyes were black. Not brown. Black. Like wet asphalt at midnight. There was a thin white scar that cut across his left eyebrow at an angle. His jaw was shadowed with stubble. He looked at her the way a man looks at a piece of furniture that has suddenly started talking. Eleanor's mouth opened. Please. That was all she could get out. Her voice was a whisper that didn't even reach his collar. Please. Pretend you know me. He didn't move. His eyes flicked over her face, then down, then up again. Reading her, the way someone reads a contract for the first time. Looking for the catch, my ex-husband, she breathed. He's right there. Silver tie. At the bar. I just need him to walk past. I just need a minute. The man did not let go of her hand. He looked over her shoulder, just once. A half-second flick of those black eyes toward the bar where Hollis Crane was still telling his story. And something in the stranger's face changed. It wasn't anger. It was quieter than anger. The way the sky changes color, right before a storm comes through. Something behind his eyes shifted and locked into place, and Elena felt the temperature in her chest drop 10 degrees. "What is his name?" The stranger's voice was low, gravelly. There was an accent she couldn't quite place. Old country, somewhere. Hollis. Hollis Crane. The stranger went still, for maybe 1 full second. Then he did something Elena was not expecting. He stepped forward, right into her space, close enough that she could smell him. Cedar and dark coffee and something else underneath. Something faintly metallic she didn't have a word for. His free hand came up and slid around the small of her back, heavy, warm. The flat of his palm pressing against the chiffon like it had been there 100 times before. He pulled her against his chest. Eleanor's breath stopped. His chest was a wall. She could feel his heart through the wool of his jacket. Slow, steady. The pulse of a man who had never panicked about anything in his life. "If we are pretending," he said quietly, his mouth close to her ear, "we pretend properly. Look up at me. Smile. As if I have just said something only you understand." Eleanor tilted her head back. Their faces were inches apart. She tried to make her mouth into a smile, and what came out was something trembling and broken, but it was the best she could do. And the stranger looked down at her, and his thumb moved once, slowly, a small circle on the small of her back, through the chiffon, through everything, heat, right at the base of her spine. "Good," he murmured. "Now breathe," she breathed. Again, she breathed again. "My name is Salvatore," he said, voice low enough that only she could hear it. "You will call me Sal, yours. Eleanor, Ellie, Eleanor." He said it the way her grandfather used to say it, like the name had weight. "You are safe in this moment. Do you understand me?" She nodded. She did not entirely understand. She did not understand any of it. But for the first time in 20 minutes, her heart was not trying to crawl out of her ribs. That's when she heard it, the voice. From behind her left shoulder. Well, 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 if it isn't little Penny. The fake smile died on her mouth. Sal did not move. His hand stayed exactly where it was on her back. His other hand was still holding hers, gentle, as if her fingers were something he might break. She turned her head. Hollis was standing maybe 4 feet away, cocktail in his hand. The blonde was gone. He had that look on his face, the one she had spent 3 years studying the way prisoners study the schedule of their guards. Amused, disgusted. About to be cruel about it. "Look at you," Hollis said. His eyes did the thing, up and down, lingering. "I almost didn't recognize you under all that. Did you actually buy a ticket to this thing, or did Bridget sneak you in the kitchen entrance?" He smiled. "I'm just kidding. Sort of. You look healthy. Is that the word?" 3 years ago, Eleanor would have apologized. 3 years ago, Eleanor would have shrunk into her own collarbones and said something about the dress not fitting right, and laughed at her own expense first. So he couldn't get there before her. She opened her mouth. She did not get a word out, because the man behind her, the stranger with the scarred eyebrow and the steady heart, turned his head. That was all he did. He turned his head, but the air in the immediate 10 feet around them dropped by what felt like 20 degrees. "You are interrupting." Sal's voice was almost soft. Almost. Hollis blinked. Whatever he'd been about to say got stuck somewhere behind his teeth. He looked at Sal, and Eleanor watched her ex-husband's face do something she had never seen it do before. Hollis Crane, who had bullied investors and screamed at waiters and once told a parking attendant to learn English, looked at the man holding his ex-wife, and his throat actually moved. He swallowed. He tried for a smile. "I'm sorry, pal. I was just saying hello to my ex-wife. I don't think we've been introduced." "No," Sal said. "We have not." There was a beat. 2 beats. Sal released Eleanor's hand. Just her hand. The arm around her back stayed exactly where it was. He took 1 step forward. Not aggressive, not fast. Just 1 step. And somehow the geometry of the room rearranged itself so that Sal was between Eleanor and Hollis. And Hollis had taken a step back without realizing he had done it. "My name is Salvatore Bianchi." Sal's voice was conversational. The way a man talks when he is asking for the wine list. Hollis went the color of dishwater. Eleanor watched it happen in real time. The blood left his face from the forehead down. By the time the name had finished crossing the 4 feet between them, Hollis Crane was a different man than he had been 3 seconds earlier. Bianchi, even Eleanor knew that name. You couldn't live in Chicago and not know that name. Bianchi Shipping, Bianchi Holdings, the family that owned half the port, and was rumored to own most of the rest of it through people whose names you couldn't pronounce. The kind of family that didn't appear in newspapers, because the newspapers had learned not to. Hollis's mouth was open. "Nothing was coming out. You will apologize," Sal said. "I," to the lady. Hollis turned his head a 1/4 inch in Eleanor's direction. His eyes did not meet hers. He looked at her collarbone. "I apologize for my comment about the dress." It was not about the dress. Hollis swallowed again. There was sweat at his temple now. Real sweat. Eleanor watched a single bead of it slide down past his ear. For my comment about her appearance. "I apologize. Ellie, I apologize." Eleanor said nothing. She couldn't have spoken if she'd wanted to. Sal turned his head 1 more inch toward Hollis, and whatever passed between them in that look, Eleanor didn't see it. She couldn't see his face, but she watched Hollis Crane, the man who had spent 3 years grinding her down to powder, take a full step backward, and then another one. And then a third. "You will leave," Sal said, quietly. "You will leave this hotel. You will not return tonight. You and I, Mr. Crane, we will speak again, soon, about a number of things. Do you understand me?" Hollis nodded. He nodded a lot. He kept nodding as he backed away. He almost knocked over a waiter. He turned and he walked, quickly, through the crowd, out toward the main doors. Once he hit the carpet near the exit, Eleanor watched him break into something that wasn't quite a run, but wasn't walking either. And then he was gone. The string quartet kept playing. The diamond woman across the room kept laughing at something, that the room had not noticed any of it. The whole exchange had taken maybe 90 seconds. And the rest of the gala had gone on around them like weather. Sal's arm was still around her. Eleanor became aware of 2 things at the same time. 1, she was shaking, hard, the whole length of her, from her hairline down through her heels. A kind of shaking that came up out of the floor and used her body to do its work, too. There were 2 men standing about 6 feet behind Sal. She hadn't seen them arrive. She hadn't seen them at all. They were dressed exactly like every other man in the ballroom. But their hands were inside their jackets, and their eyes had been on Hollis the whole time. She didn't remember them being there a minute ago. She wasn't sure they had been. Sal turned to her. His face had changed again. Whatever had been in his eyes when he looked at Hollis was packed away now. What was left was just him. Looking down at her, "You are shaking. I'm fine. You are not fine. I'm fine. I just need." What did she need? She didn't know what she needed. "I need to find my friend." Eleanor heard herself say it. The words sounded like someone else's. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I'll go." She tried to step back from him. His arm did not move. "Eleanor, yes, walk with me. Walk with me. The lobby. We will sit. I will get you water. You are going to fall down if you try to find your friend right now." Eleanor looked up at him. She did not want to walk with him. She did want to walk with him. She did not know how to be a person who knew the difference between those 2 things anymore. He took her elbow. Gently, with the same casual authority he had used to make Hollis Crane evaporate, he guided her across the carpet, and the crowd parted for him in a way the crowd did not part for anyone else. and Eleanor noticed for the first time that the two men in suits were walking behind them. Not close, not far. The way you walk when walking is your job. She passed Bridget on the way out. Bridget was at the edge of the dance floor with her hedge fund man. And she saw Eleanor and her face did something complicated. Surprise. Then something else underneath the surprise. Something fast that Eleanor didn't have time to read. Eleanor mouthed, "Call you later." Bridget nodded. Bridget was watching the man whose arm Eleanor was on. Bridget's mouth was a little open. Then they were through the doors and into the lobby. The marble was cold under the carpet. The chandeliers were enormous. A doorman in a maroon coat saw Sal and immediately straightened the way young men straighten when an officer walks into the room. Sal didn't sit her down in the lobby. He walked her past the lobby, past the concierge, past the gift shop with its closed gate, through a side door she hadn't noticed and down a hallway with carpet that swallowed the sound of their footsteps. There was a private exit at the end of it, a black car waiting at the curb. The driver was already out, holding the door open. The two men in suits stayed in the lobby. Sal opened the door for her himself. "Get in, Eleanor. Get in. We will talk. You will be safe. You have my word, his word." She did not know this man. She did not know what his word was worth. She had just used him as a human shield against her ex-husband, and now he was opening the door of a car the size of a small apartment, and his eyes were waiting for her to decide. The night air smelled like rain. Somewhere a cab honked. Eleanor got in. She heard her own heels click on the curb and then on the leather floor of the car. And then she was sitting in cream leather that was softer than her own bed. And Sal was getting in across from her, and the door was closing. And the city outside was starting to blur as the car pulled into traffic. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Sal opened a small panel in the side of the car. He took out a crystal decanter. He poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into a glass and held it out to her. "Drink. It will help." She took it. Her hand was steadier than she expected. The whiskey was smooth, warm, expensive. It burned in a way that was almost kind. "Better," she nodded Eleanor. "Look at me." She looked at him. His face in the soft glow of the car's interior lights was not the face that had stared down Hollis Crane in the ballroom. It was a quieter face. A face with edges in it. A face that had seen a great many things and not asked any of them to leave. "I am going to tell you some things now," he said. "Some of them you will not want to hear. I would prefer you hear them in a chair, with a drink, rather than in the lobby of a hotel with photographers 50 feet away. Do you understand? Yes, your ex-husband, Hollis Crane. Yes, he stole $5 million from me." The whiskey stopped halfway to her mouth. She did not put the glass down. I'm sorry. Do not apologize. You did not steal it." He did. From a company called Vanguard Holdings, which is one of mine. 3 months ago. He did it well. Better than I would have expected from a man who wears a silver tie to a charity event. Eleanor set the glass down on the small leather table between them, carefully, like the glass was the only thing in the world she could control. Her voice was small. "I don't have anything to do with his business. We divorced 6 months ago. I haven't even spoken to him, I know. You know, Eleanor. I have known about you for 3 months. Your name, your firm, the address of the apartment on Lincoln Park, the name of your dog. I know what time you usually take him out in the morning. I know you order pad thai from the place on Halstead on Tuesdays." The car was very quiet. Outside, the rain had started. Eleanor watched it streak the window and tried to make her brain do anything other than the thing it was doing, which was a kind of slow grey nothing. Why? Because 3 months ago a man took $5 million from me, and the only person on earth who has ever known how that man hides his money is the woman who used to be married to him. She closed her eyes as she felt the city moving past the windows. "Eleanor, yes. Open your eyes, please. She opened them. Sal was leaning forward now, his elbows on his knees, his hands together, not threatening. Almost the opposite of threatening. The way a doctor leans toward a patient when the news is bad. You have two choices tonight. I am going to tell you both. Then you are going to choose. I will not lie to you. I will not soften it. You have been lied to and softened enough for one lifetime. Do you understand me? A small sound came out of her. It might have been a yes. Choice one. You help me. You come with me to a place that is mine, where there is a workstation set up for you, and you do what you do for a living. You find the money, we get it back. When it is done, you go home, to your apartment. You are protected for the rest of your life, by me, by my name. Hollis Crane never comes within 100 yards of you again. And choice two, Sal's eyes were quiet. Choice two, you walk out of this car at the next red light. You go home, you go to bed, and in 3 days, perhaps 4, the men your ex-husband has been negotiating with will come to your apartment looking for the information they think you have. They will not be polite. I will not be there. You will be on your own. Her mouth was dry. The men he's been negotiating with, the O'Brien family, Donald Fitzgerald's people. The Irish, I don't know anything about them. That is the problem. They do not know that you do not know, and they cannot afford to find out the hard way. The car was slowing. Eleanor looked out the window. They were stopped at a red light at the corner of Michigan and Wacker. The rain was harder now. A woman in a clear plastic poncho was running across the street, holding a phone over her head. The light was red. Sal was looking at her, waiting. He had said he would. He had said next red light. She could open the door. She could get out and find a cab and go home to Winston and pretend. She thought about pretending. She had been pretending for a long time. Then, slowly, Eleanor reached up and undid the seatbelt she didn't remember fastening. She picked up the whiskey glass. She took another sip. Her hand was very steady now. She set the glass back down on the leather table. There's a third choice. Sal's expression did not change. But something behind his eyes did. I'm listening. I have his books. A pause. Pardon. His real books. Not the ones his accountants see. Not the ones the IRS sees. The ones he kept on an encrypted drive in his closet the night I left him, 6 months ago. I copied the whole drive. I was scared. I was alone. I didn't know what I might need someday. So I copied it. All of it. Every account number. Every shell company. Every transfer he made for the last 4 years. Sal did not move. You have this. Yes. Where? Safety deposit box. My name. A bank he doesn't use. You have never opened it. I was too scared. I didn't even know what I was looking at when I copied it. I just knew it was the kind of thing I might need, like a fire extinguisher. You don't open it unless the house is burning. Sal was very still. Then he did something Eleanor did not expect. He laughed. It was a small laugh, almost a breath, a single quiet huff that started in his chest. There was something like wonder in it, not amusement. Wonder, Elena Marsh. Yes, you walked into that ballroom tonight with a knife in your purse. And you did not know it. She didn't answer. The light turned green. The car pulled forward. It did not stop at the next intersection. It kept going, smooth and quiet over the wet streets, toward something Eleanor could not yet see. The whiskey was warm in her stomach. The chiffon was scratching her hip where Sal's hand had been an hour ago. Her phone was buzzing in her clutch. Bridget. Probably Bridget. She did not pick it up. Sal was looking at her. He was looking at her like she had just become someone he was going to have to take seriously. My driver will take us to my home, he said quietly. There is a room you can use. There is food. There are people I will need to make calls to. Tomorrow we begin. Tonight you rest. Do you have any questions? Yes, ask. My dog. Sal blinked. Just once. Your dog, Winston. He's at home. He needs to eat. He needs to be walked. I won't go anywhere without him. There was a beat. Then Sal Bianchi. The man whose name had emptied half the color out of Hollis Crane's face 15 minutes ago picked up a small phone from the console beside him. He spoke 3 words into it, the dog. Now he set the phone down. My people will pick up your dog within the hour. He will be at my home before you arrive. There is a yard. He will be safe. Other questions. Eleanor's eyes were wet. She hadn't noticed when that had happened. She wiped at them with the heel of her hand, carefully. Because of the mascara. One more. Ask, why did you help me? Sal looked at her for a long moment. The rain was loud against the windows of the car. In the ballroom, he said. Before you touch my hand, do you know what I was looking at? No. The lake. I was thinking about my wife. She was killed 3 years ago. By the same men your ex-husband is currently trying to do business with. I was standing at the window thinking about her, about what it would be like to feel her hand in mine one more time. And then you, a stranger, a frightened woman, touched my hand. He looked down at his own hand. The right one, the one she had grabbed. I do not believe in signs. Eleanor, I am not a man who believes in signs. He looked back up at her. But I do not ignore them either. The car turned onto Michigan Avenue. The magnificent mile slid past in streaks of wet gold. Somewhere ahead, on the upper floors of a tower she could not yet see, the lights of a penthouse were already on, waiting. The penthouse smelled like coffee and old leather. Eleanor woke up in a bed that was not hers, in sheets that cost more than her car. And for the first 3 seconds she did not remember where she was. Then she did. She sat up too fast. The room was huge. Tall windows, grey morning light. The Chicago River 300 feet below, moving like a slow piece of dark glass. There was a robe folded at the end of the bed that had not been there when she fell asleep. White. Heavy. She did not remember falling asleep. She remembered the car. She remembered the elevator. She remembered an old man with white hair meeting them at the door of the penthouse and looking at her for a long time, and then saying something quietly to Sal in Italian. She remembered Winston. Winston had been there. Winston had walked across the marble floor on his bad hip and put his chin on her knee. And that was the last thing she remembered. There was a soft scratching sound from the door. She got up. She opened the door an inch. Winston pushed through. He was wearing a new collar. Leather, tan, with a small brass tag on it that she did not recognize. His coat had been brushed. He smelled like he'd been bathed. He looked at her with his old serious face, and then he sat down on her foot the way he always did, and let out a long sigh through his nose. Somebody had bathed her dog. Somebody had brushed her dog and put a new collar on her dog, and Winston had let them do it. Winston did not let people do things to him. Eleanor put her hand on his head. She breathed. She did not cry. She had decided sometime around 2 in the morning, lying in a stranger's guest room, that she was done crying for a while. Crying was a thing the old Eleanor did. The new Eleanor was going to do something else. The new Eleanor did not yet know what. She put on the robe. She walked into the hallway. The penthouse went on forever. Marble, glass, dark wood. A long hallway with framed black and white photographs along one wall. She walked past them slowly. A young man in a suit standing next to an old man in a suit. A wedding, a baby, a boat. The same dark eyes in every picture. The same heavy jaw, generations of a family. The kind of family that hung itself on a wall. She turned a corner and almost knocked over a child. The child was small, maybe 7. Dark hair in a long braid, pink pajamas with little white horses on them. She was carrying a bowl of cereal. She stopped dead in front of Eleanor and looked up. For a second, neither of them moved. Then the child smiled. It was a careful smile, a guarded smile. The smile of a kid who had learned early that smiles were a thing you used carefully. "You are the lady." "I," Eleanor said. "Yes. I guess I am. Hi, my papa said you would be here. He said not to bother you." "You're not bothering me. He said you needed sleep because Last night was hard. Eleanor's throat did something. He said that. He said you were brave. The kid took a spoonful of cereal, chewed it, looked Eleanor up and down with the unimpressed calm of every 7-year-old who has ever lived. Is that your dog? Yes, he is old. Yes, what is his name? Winston. I like that name. What's your name? Sophia. Hi, Sophia. Hi. The kid took another spoonful of cereal. Winston, who had been watching this conversation with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice, leaned forward slowly and sniffed at her elbow. Sophia did not move. She let him sniff. Then she put her small, free hand on his head, and Winston closed his eyes the way he only ever did for Eleanor. Traitor, Eleanor thought. She felt herself smile. It startled her. It had been a long time since smiling had happened to her face without her telling it to. My papa is in the kitchen. He is making eggs. He makes them with too much butter. But he says it is how his mother made them, so he will not change. Okay, you can come if you want, Sophia turned around and started walking back down the hallway, balancing her cereal bowl. She did not wait to see if Eleanor was following. She just assumed Eleanor was. Winston gave Eleanor one look and trotted after the kid, like he'd been doing it his entire life. Eleanor stood in the hallway for one more second. She had not signed up for a child. Nobody had said anything about a child. She tightened the belt of the robe and followed. The kitchen was the size of her apartment. Sal was standing at the stove with his back to her. He had taken off the suit. He was wearing a plain black t-shirt and grey slacks. His hair was wet at the back, like he had just showered. He was holding a wooden spoon. He was making scrambled eggs. She had to put her hand on the doorframe. It was such a small thing. A man at a stove with a spoon. But she had not seen Hollis Crane make himself so much as a piece of toast in 3 years of marriage. Hollis Crane had a personal chef and a meal plan and an opinion about every calorie that crossed her plate. The idea of Hollis standing barefoot in a kitchen scrambling eggs was not even an idea. It was a thing the universe didn't allow. This man was barefoot. A man who ran half of Chicago was barefoot in his kitchen scrambling eggs for his kid. She did not know where to put that. You are awake. He had not turned around. He just knew yes. Sit. There is coffee. The eggs are almost ready. Sal's sit. Eleanor. She sat. There was a long marble island in the middle of the kitchen. Sophia was already perched on a stool, eating her cereal. Winston had laid himself down on the floor, at her feet like an old rug. Somebody had put a bowl of water down for him, near the door. The bowl was ceramic. It had his name on it, his name on it. Eleanor looked at the bowl for a long time. Sal came over with 2 plates. He set one down in front of her. Eggs. Toast. A small pile of fruit. He set the other in front of Sophia, who already had cereal, and made a face at him. I have cereal. You will eat the eggs also. Why? Because you are small, and the eggs will make you less small. I do not want to be less small. Eat the eggs, Sophia. 2 bites. 4, 3, done. The kid took 3 bites of eggs with the dignity of someone who'd had just signed a peace treaty. Sal sat down on the stool across from Eleanor. He didn't have a plate. He had a cup of coffee. He picked it up. He drank. He watched her. He did not say anything. He was waiting, for what Eleanor did not know. She picked up her fork. She took a bite of the eggs. They were too buttery. Sophia had been right. They were also the best eggs Eleanor had eaten in maybe 6 months. She had not realized until that exact second that she was starving. They are good. My mother's recipe. She must have been a good cook, she was. She is dead. He said it the way another man might say it is raining, not unkindly. Just true, I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. Eat. We have a great deal to do today. Sophia finished her 3 bites of eggs and her cereal and got down off the stool. She walked over to Eleanor. She stopped at the edge of Eleanor's chair and looked up at her again with that same careful, guarded little face. Are you going to be here for a while? The whole kitchen got very quiet. Eleanor looked at Sal. Sal did not look at her. He was looking at his coffee. His jaw was very still. Eleanor said, I don't know yet, sweetheart. Maybe for a little bit. Okay, that was all. Then Sophia turned around and walked out of the kitchen, calling for her dog Winston, who, apparently, was now also her dog. Winston got up and followed her. She looked at Sal. He was finally looking back. She does not warm up to people. She did to me, I noticed. Sal, yes. Why is there a 7-year-old in your house? He took a long, slow sip of coffee. He set the cup down. He looked at her for a moment that felt like it had weight in it, because she is mine. Oh, her mother. The woman I mentioned in the car last night. Sophia was 4 when it happened. She does not remember her mother very well. She remembers the day. She does not remember the face, Sal. Eat your eggs, Eleanor. She ate her eggs. He did not say anything else about it. But she watched him for the next 10 minutes the way you watch a man who has just shown you a wound he does not usually let people see. He sipped his coffee. He looked at his phone. He answered a text in Italian. The light from the kitchen window was hitting one side of his face. She thought about her ex-husband. She thought about how Hollis Crane had never, not once, looked at her with the expression Sal Bianchi had on his face when he said her name. Hollis Crane had looked at her like an asset on a balance sheet that was depreciating. Sal Bianchi looked at her like she was a piece of evidence in a case he was solving with his life. The old man with the white hair came into the kitchen. She had not heard him enter. He just appeared. He was wearing a charcoal cardigan over a white shirt. He moved like a man who had spent 50 years learning how not to be noticed unless he wanted to be. Frank Salvatore. The old man looked at Eleanor. He looked at her for a long time. She felt herself sit up a little straighter under the look. She did not know why. There was something in his face that did not allow you to slump, Signora. How you slept? Yes. Good. Good. Sleep is important. The body. It cannot fight without sleep. He turned to Sal. The drive. This morning. 11 o'clock. She and I will go together. Tommy will drive. Frank looked back at Eleanor. He came closer. He sat down on the stool Sophia had just vacated. Up close, she could see that one of his eyes was a slightly different color than the other. Pale, faded blue. He smelled like aftershave and pipe tobacco. You will work today, Signora. Yes. You will look at numbers, yes. You have done this work for many years, 8 years. I'm a forensic accountant. I find money that people are trying to hide. He nodded, as if she had passed a small test. Your husband. The one from last night, ex-husband. He did not know what he had, I'm sorry, in his house. He did not know what he had. Eleanor did not know what to say to that. Frank reached out. He patted the back of her hand, once. The way her own grandfather had patted her hand when she was 9 and her cat had died. Old man comfort. The kind nobody knew how to do anymore. You eat the eggs, he said. You drink the coffee. You work. We are going to be all right. He got up. He nodded at Sal. He walked out. Eleanor watched him go. Who is that? Frank Russo. He has been with my family since before I was born. He looks at you like what? Like a father. Sal was quiet for a long beat. He is. As close as I have to one. Yes, she nodded. She did not push. She was learning very slowly when to push and when not to push with this man. There were a lot of doors in him. Some of them opened. Some of them did not. Some of them you had to wait for. The next 3 days disappeared. She worked at a desk in a study that overlooked the river. 2 monitors. A keyboard that clicked the way good keyboards used to click before everything went quiet. A pad of yellow legal paper that she filled and turned the page and filled again. The encrypted drive from her safety deposit box was plugged into her left. Hollis Crane's whole life was on it. Every account. Every shell, every name he'd ever paid. Every name he'd ever paid to lie about something. She tracked the 5 million. It had moved 7 times. a wire to a Bahamian holding company, then a transfer to a Delaware LLC that did not actually exist, then a routing through a real estate fund in Miami, then a series of small purchases of legitimate companies in industries Hollis Crane had no business being in: auto parts, line services, a trucking company in Gary, Indiana. Then it stopped. The trail ended in something called Ironclad Logistics. Elena sat back in her chair. She knew that name. Ironclad Logistics had been in the news 6 months ago. A federal investigation that had gone nowhere because every officer of the company had refused to testify. The Tribune had used a word it did not usually use. Connected Ironclad was Irish. Ironclad was Donald Fitzgerald. Frank brought her coffee twice a day. Black, strong. He did not bring it on a tray. He just appeared with 2 mugs and set one down and then sat down opposite her and drank his while she drank hers. And most of the time they did not speak. On the second day he did speak. He was looking out the window at the river. He said, "I have done this work for a long time. 47 years. What is the work? The work is to watch, to listen, to know what kind of person a man is, or a woman." He took a sip of his coffee. "I have seen many women in this house, Signora. I bet you have. Most of them afraid. Some of them greedy. Some of them both." He turned his head and looked at her. "You are doing math, that's literally my job. Yes, no, I do not mean the numbers. I mean." In here, he tapped his temple. "You are not afraid. You are not greedy. You are calculating. There is a difference. Most people, they do not know there is a difference. But there is." She didn't answer. "He sees it too. Sal? What does he see?" Frank smiled. It was a small smile. The corners of his eyes folded into 100 small lines. He sees a woman who has been told a lie about herself for a long time, and who is starting to stop believing it. "Signora, do you know how many men have ever seen a woman do that? In front of them, in real time. How many? Very few. And most of them are not lucky enough to be there for it." He got up. He took the empty cups. He walked out. Elena sat with her hands in her lap for almost 10 minutes after he left. Then she went back to work. The 4th night, she could not sleep. She got up. She put on the robe. She walked down the hallway in her bare feet. Winston was asleep on a dog bed at the foot of her bed. He did not stir. The penthouse was dark, except for the city light coming in through the windows. She walked through the kitchen for a glass of water, and that was where she heard it. Thump, thump. A rhythmic, muffled sound from somewhere below her. She found a staircase she had not noticed before. She went down. The basement of the penthouse was a private gym. Black rubber floor, a heavy bag hanging from a chain, mirrors along one wall, a speaker playing something low. Frank Sinatra. The version where he sounded like he was about to cry into a drink at 3 in the morning. Sal was at the bag. He had his back to her. He was barefoot, gym shorts, a tank top dark with sweat. His shoulders were bare, his arms were bare, and his back. Eleanor stopped at the bottom of the stairs. She put one hand on the wall. His back was a map of old wounds, pale lines that crossed each other at angles, a bigger scar low on the left side jagged, the kind a knife makes, a small round one high on the right shoulder. Older ones, newer ones, the story of a life she had no way to read. He hit the bag. Thump, thump. He did not turn around. "Go back to bed, Eleanor." His voice was flat. He had heard her the second she came down the stairs. "Probably before. I can't sleep." "Try." I tried. "Eleanor, what are these from?" He went still. He let the bag swing. He did not turn around. "Old work," he said. "What kind of work?" "The kind that I do not do anymore. The kind that I do not let other people do anymore, Sal." He turned. His chest was wet. He had a towel slung around his neck. He picked up the end of it and wiped his face. He looked at her standing there, at the bottom of the stairs in his guest robe, with her hair down for the first time since she'd arrived. And his face did a thing. It was very quick. He shut it down. But she saw it. He saw her see it, Eleanor. Go back upstairs. Why? Because I am asking you to. Sal. Eleanor. Tell me about your back. He was quiet. He looked at the floor, then at the bag, then at her. He sat down on a low bench against the wall. He took a long drink from a water bottle. He set the bottle down. When I was 23, he said, I went to work for my father. I did not want to. My mother did not want me to. My father did not give me a choice. I did certain things. For 3 years. Things I will not describe to you. Things that put marks on me. Things I put on other men. He looked up at her. When I was 26, my father died. I took over. The first thing I did was stop us from doing certain kinds of work. What kinds? Drugs. Out. Women. Out. Children. Out. We are in shipping. Real shipping. We are in real estate. Real real estate. We are in some other things that are not illegal but are not for polite company. We do not deal in poison. We do not deal in people. My grandfather did. My father did some. I stopped. Why? Because of the marks on your back, on my back. And other places. Some you cannot see. She came down off the last step. She did not move toward him. She just came down off the step. My father, he said quietly, told me once that there are 2 kinds of men in this world. Men who have rules, and men who have appetites. The men with appetites become animals. They die badly. They take their families down with them. The men with rules, they live. They build something. He looked at her. My ex-husband is a man with appetites. Yes, he counted my food, Sal. He kept a notebook by the bathroom sink. He wrote my weight in it every Sunday. She did not finish. He waited. He told me, she said. He told me that a woman my size should fall to her knees in gratitude for landing a handsome, successful man like him. The room was very quiet. The Sinatra song ended. Another one started. Even sadder than the first. Sal stood up. He did not come to her. He stood up, and he walked over to the heavy bag, and he put one hand on it, on the leather, and he stood there for a long moment with head down. His shoulders went up. They came down. He breathed. Then he turned around. Eleanor, yes, in this house. A woman eats, Sal. A woman is respected. In this house. That is how it has always been. That is how it will always be. I will not be the man who tells you what to put in your body. I will not be the man who tells you what to wear. I will not be the man who measures you, or weighs you, or tells you that your size. Your size is a thing you should apologize for. To anyone. Ever, Sal? Look at me. She looked at him. You are not too much. You are exactly enough. He was the wrong size as. Not you. Do you understand? She nodded. She could not speak. Her eyes were burning. She had spent 3 years being told a lie every single day. 3 years of small comments. 3 years of weighings. And here in a basement in a building owned by a man who carried his past on his back, here was someone telling her in plain English what was true. She wiped her face. Sorry. Do not apologize. I keep doing that. You will stop. Eventually, she laughed. It was a wet laugh. A small, real one. He nodded toward the stairs. Go to bed, Eleanor. Okay, Eleanor. Yes. Tomorrow we move. The drive is almost cracked. The Irish are starting to ask questions. Things will get harder. I know. Are you ready? She did not answer right away. She thought about it. She thought about Winston upstairs on the dog bed. About Sophia and her cereal. About Frank's hand on hers in the kitchen. About a notebook she had thrown into Lake Michigan 6 months ago. And watched sink. Yes, she said. I'm ready. He nodded. She went upstairs. The next morning, Bridget called Eleanor was in the study. Coffee at her elbow. 2 days into a particular shell company that was not behaving the way it should be behaving. The phone buzzed. Bridget. She picked it up. Hey, where are you? She had not thought about what to say. I'm staying with a friend. A friend. Yeah. Ellie. The friend from the gala. Bridget. That was Salvatore Bianchi. I know who it was. Ellie. Bridget. Are you in danger? No. I'm not. I'm fine. I'm safe. I needed to be somewhere for a few days. There was a long pause on the line. Can we meet? Bridget, coffee, just coffee. Tomorrow. I'm worried about you. Please. Eleanor hesitated. She did not know why she hesitated. This was her best friend. This was the woman who had held her hair the night. She finally got drunk enough to admit out loud, on a kitchen floor, what Hollis had been doing to her. This was the woman who had driven the moving truck, who had brought Winston his arthritis medicine when Eleanor had been too exhausted to leave the apartment for a week after the divorce. This was Bridget. Tomorrow. Okay. Tomorrow at 4. The place on Halstead. Thank you, Bridge. Yeah, are you? Are you okay? Why? You sound a pause. I'm fine. I'm just worried. I'll see you tomorrow. She hung up. Eleanor sat with the phone in her lap for a long second. Then she went back to the shell company. The shell company was being weird. It was registered to a P.O. box in Toledo. It had no employees on record. It had no assets on record. It had no purpose on record. But over the last 2 years it had received 17 small wires, none of them larger than $9,900, all of them just under the federal reporting threshold. That part was normal. That part was a man trying not to be noticed. The weird part was the source. The source of all 17 wires was Hollis Crane's personal checking account. He was paying somebody, off the books, regularly. For 2 years, Eleanor traced the destination of the funds. The shell company forwarded everything to one account, immediately, every time. A personal savings account in Chicago. At First Midwest, in a name she had never seen before. The name was Bridget Halloran. Eleanor did not move for a long time. She did not breathe. She did not let her face do anything. She sat in the study with the river behind her, and she stared at the screen, and she felt the bottom of her life fall out from under her one more time. And she did not let her face do anything. She picked up her coffee. She took a sip. It was cold. She put it down. She sat there for maybe 5 more minutes, counting numbers. The numbers were always there. She made the numbers move. She made them line up. She made them tell her the story again. Just to be sure. She was very sure. $63,400. Bridget had been on Hollis Crane's payroll for 2 years and 1 month. Bridget had been on his payroll, while Bridget held Eleanor's hair on the kitchen floor. Bridget had been on his payroll the night she drove the moving truck. Bridget had been on his payroll yesterday when she called and said, "I'm worried about you," with that little pause. Eleanor picked up the coffee cup again. Her hand was steady. She drank the rest of the cold coffee. She did not cry. She got up. She walked out of the study. She walked down the hallway. Past the wall of photographs. Past the door where Sophia and her dog were watching some cartoon with a high-pitched theme song. Through the kitchen, Sal was in the dining room with Frank and Tommy. The 3 of them were standing around a table covered in maps and papers. They looked up when she came in. Sal saw her face. He did not say anything. He just waited. Sal, yes, my friend Bridget, the one who called this morning. To meet me for coffee tomorrow. Yes, she is on Hollis's payroll. The room got very quiet. Frank's eyes went to Sal. Tommy's hand went very slowly to his belt. For how long? Sal said. 2 years. How much? $63,400. You are certain? I am certain. Sal looked at her. He looked at her for a long moment, in which the city outside the windows kept moving, and the river kept flowing. And somewhere across town a woman named Bridget Halloran was probably picking out an outfit for coffee tomorrow. Eleanor. What do you want to do? She thought about it. She did not think about it for long. I want to meet her tomorrow. At 4, at the place on Halstead. I want to bring the bank statements. I want her to look at them. And then what? Then I want to walk out. And I do not want to ever see her face again. And I do not want anyone to touch her. Sal, do you hear me? I hear you. No one touches her. No one touches her. She nodded. She turned to leave. At the door she stopped. Sal. Yes. What was the third thing? The third thing, you said in the car. The men with rules live. They build something. Yes. Build what? Sal looked at her across the room. There was something in his face she had not seen there before. Tommy and Frank were both very quiet. Frank had a small, private smile at the corner of his mouth, like he had been waiting 2 days for someone to ask the question. Family, Sal said. They build family, Elena. She nodded. She walked out. That night, Elena did not sleep. She sat in the window seat in her guest room, with Winston's head in her lap. She watched the lights on the river. She thought about Bridget. She thought about Sophia. She thought about Frank's hand on hers in the kitchen, about Sal in the basement with the heavy bag and the marks on his back. She thought about Hollis Crane. She thought about the notebook. She did not cry. Around 3 in the morning, her phone buzzed. A text from a number she did not recognize. We know where you are. Give us the drive by Friday. Or your friend Bridget pays and so does the dog. She read it 3 times. She did not move. She sat with the phone in her hand, and she watched the lights on the river, and she thought about everything she had been told her whole life, about what kind of woman she was, soft, small, lucky to be loved, lucky to be tolerated, lucky to be here. She thought about the navy chiffon dress hanging in the closet behind her. The dress she had worn into the Drake Hotel 5 nights. Oh, 5 nights. That was all it had been. 5 nights ago, she had been a woman who was afraid of her ex-husband walking past her at a charity event. 5 nights ago. She picked up the phone. She typed back, Trey. She hit send. She set the phone down. Winston shifted his weight in her lap. He sighed through his nose. Outside, the river kept moving. The city kept being a city, and Elena Marsh, 31 years old, sat in a window in a penthouse on the 28th floor of a building she did not own, and she watched the night turn slowly into morning, and she did not flinch. She put her hand on Winston's head. She closed her eyes, and she waited for morning. The coffee shop on Halstead was the same as it had always been, brick walls, bad lighting, a chalkboard menu nobody had updated since spring. The same bored kid behind the counter who had been there in college. Bridget was already at a table by the window. She had her hair down. She had ordered Eleanor's drink for her. It was sitting across from her, going cold. That was the part that got Eleanor. The drink, Bridget had ordered her drink for her. The almond milk latte with 1 sugar. The exact same drink Bridget had been ordering for her since they were 22 years old. The drink that said, I know you. I see you. I am taking care of you. The drink was a knife. Eleanor sat down. She put the folder on the table between them, plain manila. No label. Hey, Bridget. You look good, Bridget. I'm so glad you. I was worried. I didn't know what, Bridget. Stop. Bridget stopped. Her eyes went to the folder. She knew Eleanor could see it happen across her best friend's face in real time. The small recognition. The drop in the corners of her mouth. The way her hand around her own coffee cup got just a little bit too still. Open it. Open it. Bridget opened it. She looked, she closed it. She put her hands in her lap. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The bored kid behind the counter was steaming milk for someone. The espresso machine hissed. A truck went by outside. Somewhere down the block, somebody honked at somebody else and started yelling. Chicago kept being Chicago. Ellie, how long? How long? Bridget, 2 years. You held my hair. On my kitchen floor. You held my hair. While I told you about the notebook. Ellie, please. He threatened my family. Bridget, he said. He said he would. He had pictures of my mom's house. He had photos. He sent them to my phone. He said it was a one-time thing. Just one report. And then it kept being a thing. And it kept being a thing. And I couldn't, you couldn't, I couldn't stop. Ellie. I couldn't. Eleanor was very quiet for a long beat. She looked at her friend, the friend who had been her maid of honor, The friend who had cried at the courthouse when the divorce was final. The friend whose mother had baked Eleanor a cake on her 30th birthday because Eleanor's own mother had been gone for 10 years by then. The friend who was sitting across from her now with her hands in her lap and tears coming down her face and saying I couldn't. Eleanor thought about the night she had crouched on the bathroom floor of her marriage. The night she had copied 4 years of Hollis Crane's crimes onto a thumb drive while he snored. The night she had been very afraid. The night she had been very alone. The night she had not had a choice either, except she had. She had had a choice. She had chosen. You had a choice, Bridge. Ellie, I had a choice. You had a choice. He had pictures of your mum's house. Mine had me on a scale every Sunday. We both had a choice. Please, you chose wrong. Bridget was crying now, quietly, not making a scene. The way a person cries when they have known this conversation was coming for a long time and have already practiced not making a scene about it. Eleanor stood up. She did not pick up the latte. She put her coat on. She buttoned it. She looked at her friend one last time, her best friend of 9 years. The woman who had picked out the navy chiffon dress. Bridget, yes, I trusted you with my life. You sold it for $63,000. That's all I was worth to you, Ellie. Ellie, please. Eleanor walked out. She did not look back. The car was waiting at the curb. Tommy was in the driver's seat. He saw her face. He did not say anything. He opened the door. She got in. He pulled into traffic and merged east toward the lake. In the back of the SUV, Eleanor pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the window and watched the city go by and did not let herself feel anything yet. Not yet, later, not yet. The thing was, the worst part was not what Bridget had done. The worst part was understanding that Bridget had been doing it the entire time. Every dinner, every hangover Sunday brunch, every drunk text, every birthday card. The entire time, for 2 years, which meant that the friendship Eleanor had used to survive her marriage had been part of her marriage, which meant that there was no clean place in her old life to go back to, which meant that the only people who had ever, in her entire life, looked at her the way she deserved to be looked at were a man with marks on his back, an old man in a cardigan, and a 7-year-old in pink pajamas with horses on them. Less than a week. She had known them for less than a week. Tommy turned onto Lakeshore Drive. The lake was the color of old steel. Eleanor closed her eyes. The penthouse was quiet when she walked in. Too quiet. She knew immediately. Frank was in the entryway. So was Sal. So were 2 men she had seen in the hallway, but had not been introduced to. Sal's face was a face she had not seen before. Not the ballroom face. Not the kitchen face. A new one. Eleanor, what? Your apartment? What about my apartment? It is on fire. Time did a thing. It bent. It went slow. Winston is here, Sal said quickly. Winston is with Sophia right now in her room. He is fine. He has been here the whole time, Eleanor. Do you hear me? The dog is safe. Yes, your home is gone. They went in this afternoon, 2 men. Donald's people. They went in looking for the drive. They found nothing. They poured something on the floor. They left. The fire department is on scene. The building is being evacuated. No one is hurt. No people. No animals. Eleanor, yes, look at me. She looked at him. You are not safe in your old life anymore. You understand that? Yes, I'm sorry. Sal, yes, don't be sorry. Just help me end this. He looked at her for a long second. He nodded. Then a small, dark-haired streak came running down the hallway. Sophia. She had Winston by the collar. Winston was trotting along beside her, looking deeply confused but entirely willing. She came right up to Eleanor and grabbed her hand. The little hand was warm, sticky from something. Probably juice. Are you okay? Papa said your house caught on fire. Yes, baby, you can have my room. Eleanor's eyes closed. Sophia, I have 2 beds. Well, I have 1 bed and a chair that turns into a bed. You can have the chair or the bed. I don't care. Winston already likes my room. Eleanor did not trust herself to speak. She knelt down. Her dress was expensive. The floor was marble. She did not care. She knelt down, and she pulled Sophia against her. And she held the little girl tight enough that Sophia made a small oof sound and patted her back the way kids do when they don't know what to do, but they know somebody is sad. Winston put his chin on Eleanor's shoulder. She breathed in dog smell. She breathed in kid smell. She breathed. After a long minute, she stood up. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. She looked at Sophia. She looked at Sal. She looked at Frank. She looked at Tommy, who had come in behind her, and at the two men in the hallway whose names she did not yet know. "Okay," she said. "We end this. Tonight," Sal nodded. He turned to Frank. "Bring the maps. The dining room table." The maps were spread out. Floor plans, a schematic of the Chase Bank branch on Dearborn. The vault, the private viewing rooms, the exits, the street outside, the buildings across the street. Frank stood at the head of the table. Sal stood next to her. Tommy stood across from her. Two more men she had now been introduced to. Vinny, Anthony. Old, quiet, hands that had seen things. "Tomorrow morning," Sal said. 10:30. The bank opens at 9. Foot traffic is highest between 10 and 11. Eleanor goes in, alone, to her safety deposit box. She retrieves the decryption key. She walks out, and the Irish, they will know. They have a contact at the bank. 3 people on payroll. We have known about them for a year, so they will be there. They will be there. How many? 2, maybe 3, probably with Hollis. He has been calling Donnell every 2 hours since yesterday. He is desperate. He is the kind of desperate that makes a man come in person. Good. Sal looked at her. "Eleanor, yes. You will be alone in that bank for a maximum of 4 minutes. You walk in. You go to the box. You take the drive. You walk out. We are across the street. Tommy is in the car. 2 of my men are in the building lobby. The moment you cross the threshold of the bank doors going out, we are with you. The moment a hand goes anywhere near you, we are there. Okay, if you panic, I won't. If you panic, you drop. You drop to the floor. You cover your head. You do nothing else. We will handle it. I won't panic, Sal." He looked at her. He did not argue. He had stopped arguing with her about who she was about a day ago. "Tomorrow at 10:30, he said. "We end this." Frank nodded. Tommy nodded. The 2 old men nodded. And then Tommy's phone rang. Tommy answered it. The room went very quiet, because the room had been trained, by many years, to go quiet when Tommy's phone rang during a planning session. Tommy listened. His face did a thing. Then his face did another thing. He hung up the phone. He looked at Sal. "It's Aunt Lucia." What? She just got a call. From a number she did not recognize. "They have Mike." The room stopped. "They have Mike." Tommy nodded. Mike was at the warehouse with the night shift. He never came home from his shift. They are saying 24 hours. They are saying if we do not deliver Eleanor and the drive to a location they will tell us by 9 tonight. Sal had gone very still. Mike. Eleanor did not know who Mike was, but she watched Sal Bianchi's face change in a way that she had not seen it change. Not in the ballroom. Not in the basement. Not in the kitchen. This was different. This was the face of a man being shown a thing he had spent his whole life trying to protect against. And being shown that the thing had happened anyway. "Sal," he didn't answer. "Sal," he looked at her. "Who is Mike, my brother, your brother, my younger brother? He runs our warehouse on the south side. He does not do any of this. He is a clean part of the business. He has a wife. They just had a baby. 5 months ago. Yes, they took him for you." The room was very quiet. Frank Russo, sitting at the head of the table in his charcoal cardigan, with his pale, faded blue eye that did not match the other one, slowly put down his pen. He folded his hands. He looked at Sal. He spoke in Italian. It was a short sentence. Sal answered him. Also in Italian. Shorter, Frank nodded. Then Frank looked at Eleanor. He, sir, spoke in English now. For her benefit, Signora, what you are being asked to understand, and his brothers, is blood. You are not yet. Blood, the way he said it. There was no cruelty in it. Frank Russo was not a cruel man. He was just a man telling her how the world worked. The way an old plumber tells you how the pipes go. Eleanor nodded. She looked at Sal. Sal was looking at her. His face was a country she could read now. She did not know when she had started being able to, but she could. She could see what was happening behind his eyes. She could see the math of his life adding itself up. His brother. The girl. The girl who had come into his life less than a week ago. His brother who had been there 44 years. He was going to choose his brother. He had to choose his brother. She would never forgive him if he did not choose his brother. She would never forgive herself if she asked him not to. She reached across the table. She put her hand on the back of his. His hand was warm. It did not move. Sal, Eleanor, go get your brother. Eleanor, go get your brother. I cannot send you in there alone. You can, Eleanor. Sal, she looked at him. I am a forensic accountant. I have spent my entire career walking into rooms full of men who underestimate me. I know what that bank looks like. I have the key. I have the drive coordinates memorized. I know what Hollis looks like when he is afraid. I have seen it. Once. 5 nights ago. I want to see it again. Tommy and the boys can be outside. I do not need you inside. I need you to get your brother, so that I can do this without thinking about you. The whole time, doing what I am doing. Do you hear me? He looked at her. Sal, yes, go get your brother. You will come back to me. Yes, you will. Sal, I will come back. That is an order. It was the wrong word, or the right word. She did not know. His mouth did a thing. It almost smiled, almost. He stood up. He came around the table. The whole room watched him do it. He stopped in front of her chair. He bent down. He put one hand against her jaw, the pad of his thumb on her cheek. He kissed her, once slow. It was not a kiss like the one in the ballroom 5 nights ago. That one had been theater. That one had been chess. This one was different. This one was a promise. She felt it in her teeth. He stood up. He looked at Tommy. He looked at Frank. He looked at the 2 old men. Tommy and I get my brother. Vinny. Anthony. With Eleanor at the bank. You do not let her out of your sight. From the moment she leaves this building until she is back in it. Do you understand? Yes, yes, sir. Frank nodded once. I will stay here. With the child. Sal looked at Frank for a long moment. Thank you, Francesco Va. Get your brother. The morning was clear. It was the kind of October Chicago morning where the light comes in low across the lake and turns everything copper. Eleanor sat in the back of the SUV with Vinny. Anthony was driving. They had given her a small earpiece. They had also given her a pair of reading glasses that were not glasses. They had a camera in them. She did not put them on. She put them in her pocket. Her hands were not shaking. She had not slept. Slesmik was for after. She had spent the night sitting on the floor of Sophia's bedroom, while Sophia and Winston slept on the bed. She had counted breaths. Sophia's, Winston's. The way Sophia kept one small hand wrapped in Winston's collar, even when she was asleep. The way Winston had not stirred from the bed, even when Eleanor got up for water. She had thought about her mother. She had not thought about her mother in a long time. Her mother had died when Eleanor was 19. Pancreatic cancer. Fast. Bad. Eleanor's father had remarried within 2 years and moved out west, and they spoke maybe twice a year now. Sometimes Christmas, sometimes not. She had thought about how her mother used to braid her hair, how her mother used to make her cinnamon toast on Sunday mornings, how her mother had told her, once when Eleanor was 8 years old and a boy at school had called her chubby. Eleanor, you listen to me. You do not let small men decide the size of you. You do not ever let them. Eleanor had forgotten that for a long time. She had remembered it now. The SUV pulled up to the Chase Bank. Vinny looked at her. "You ready, kid?" "I'm ready. You see anything you don't like, you drop. You hear me? I won't see anything I don't like." He looked at her for a long moment. Then his old face did something that might have been a smile. All right then, she got out. The sidewalk on Dearborn was busy. People going to lunch. People going to the courthouse. People with the day in their faces. She walked up the steps of the bank in her grey wool coat. Her hair was up. She had not worn makeup. Her eyes were tired. She looked exactly like every other woman in Chicago that morning. Tired. Walking somewhere. Doing a thing. She pushed through the revolving doors, the marble, the high ceiling, the line at the tellers, the hush. She did not look around. She walked straight to the safe deposit desk. A woman behind the counter looked up. "Miss Marsh." "Yes, ID, please." She gave her her ID. Her hand was steady. The woman scanned it. The woman wrote a number on a form. The woman led her toward the back. They went through a frosted glass door, down a hallway, into the vault. The vault smelled like old paper and metal. The woman opened her side of the box. Eleanor used her key on her side. They both pulled. The box slid out. The woman left. Eleanor was alone. She opened the box. The drive was there, right where she'd left it. Small, silver, plain. The most expensive thing she had ever owned without knowing it. She picked it up. She closed the box. She slid it back in. She turned the lock. She picked up her purse. She walked out of the vault. She walked through the frosted glass door. She walked back across the marble lobby. And there he was, Hollis Crane, standing right in the middle of the lobby, between her and the front doors. He had not shaved. His tie was crooked. His eyes were the bloodshot color of a man who has not slept in 3 days. Behind him, 2 men in cheap leather jackets, their hands inside their jackets, their faces nothing. Donal's men, Eleanor, kept walking. "Penny, move. Hollis. Penny, stop. Right there. Move. You have my drive. In your hand, don't you? Look at me, Penny. I am looking at you. Give me the drive." No, he laughed. It was a bad laugh. It was the laugh of a man who had run out of laughs and was using the last one. "Penny, you don't know what you've done. You don't know what these people will do. You think you're so smart. You think your new boyfriend can save you. He is not here, Penny. He is not here. It is you, and me, and my friends. He doesn't have to be here." "What? He doesn't have to be here, Hollis." "Look around." He looked around. The bank was full of people. Tellers, customers. A security guard who had not yet noticed anything, but who was looking at the leather jackets in a way that meant he was about to. The 2 old men from Sal's crew had come in behind her. They were standing near the front doors. Their faces were calm. Their hands were inside their coats. Their eyes were on Hollis's friends. The leather jackets noticed them. The leather jackets did not move. The leather jackets were not stupid. Eleanor kept walking, slowly. She walked right up to Hollis. She stopped maybe 3 feet from him. She looked up at him. 3 years she had spent looking up at this man. Looking up at his disgust. Looking up at his patience. Looking up at his pen tapping the page of that little leather notebook. She looked up at him. He took half a step back. He didn't mean to. "Hollis, Penny. It's Eleanor." "What? It's Eleanor. My name is Eleanor. Penny is not my name. Penny pathetic is not my name. Penny who eats too much is not my name. Penny who should be grateful is not my name. My name is Elena Marsh, and you do not get to use anything else. Penny, Eleanor, Ellie. Ellie, I love you. I always loved you. I made mistakes." She laughed. A small one. A real one. The first real laugh she had had in his presence in maybe 4 years. "Hollis, yes. For 3 years you told me I was too much. Too fat. Too soft. Too stupid to leave you. Too lucky to be loved by you. You wrote my weight in a notebook every Sunday, and you tapped the page with your pen, and you said we talked about this." His face did something. "And you were right, what?" "About one thing. Just one thing. Hollis, I was too much. I am too much. I am too much for a man your size. I always was. That was the only thing you ever got right about me. She held up the drive. This. Is the rest of your life, Penny? Goodbye, Hollis. She walked past him. He did not stop her. He could not. His face had gone the color of the marble floor. Behind him, the leather jackets were doing the math. The math said the two old men by the door had better positioning. The math said the security guard had just reached for his radio. The math said that whatever was about to happen, the leather jackets did not get to be the ones who decided it. Eleanor walked to the front doors. The revolving door spun. She walked out into the October light. Tommy's SUV was at the curb. She crossed the sidewalk. She got in. She closed the door. She handed the drive to Vinny in the front seat. Vinny plugged it into the tablet on the dash. Anthony was on the phone, talking quietly. There were people on the other end who had been waiting for this call for weeks. The kind of people who could move $5 million through 3 different banks at a speed that should not be possible. Because they had spent a year setting up the relationships to do it, the tablet lit up. The transfer began. $5 million began crossing accounts from Ironclad Logistics back into Vanguard Holdings. Where it had been 3 months ago, where it belonged, it took less than a minute. Vinny watched the screen. He looked up at her. Done, kid. She nodded. She looked out the window of the SUV, through the glass front of the Chase Bank. She could see Hollis Crane, still standing in the middle of the lobby. The leather jackets had backed away from him. The security guard was walking toward him with his hand on his radio. The bank manager was coming out from behind the counter. Hollis Crane had his phone out. He was calling someone. There was no one to call Donal Fitzgerald. 3 miles east, in a warehouse on the south side, was at that exact moment having a very different morning. Sal was already there. She did not know the details. She did not want to know the details. She knew only what Vinny told her. 20 minutes later, when his phone rang and he answered it, and listened and looked at her in the rearview mirror. Sal's brother is home. She closed her eyes. She breathed, Sal is okay. Sal is okay. Tommy is okay. Everybody on our end is okay. The Irish are going to be very busy for a while sorting things out. And Hollis, Federal's agents picked him up outside the bank. About 15 minutes ago. The file you sent in last night. They moved on it. He is in custody. He will be in custody. He will not be out for a very long time. She nodded. She did not say anything. There was nothing to say. 18 months later. The light in the new office was good. It was a small office. 2nd floor of a brick building in West Loop, 2 desks, a small reception area, a waiting room with 1 good chair and a coffee maker. On the door, in plain gold letters, it said, Marsh Forensic Truceless. Underneath that, smaller, it said, Specialists in Financial Recovery. Domestic abuse and divorced cases welcome. Eleanor was at her desk. She was on the phone. I understand. Yes, ma'am. You bring whatever you have. Bank statements. Old tax returns. The shoebox in the closet, if that's what you have. I'm telling you. I am telling you. We will find it. He hid it somewhere. They always hide it somewhere. Yes, ma'am. Thursday at 10. I'll see you then. She hung up. She wrote the name on her calendar. The woman she had just spoken to had cried for the first 3 minutes of the call. She had apologized for crying. She had said, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm doing this. And Eleanor had said very gently, you do know why. It's okay. We have time. The woman's husband was a venture capitalist. The woman was 44. The woman was the 3rd person this month. The door opened. Sophia came in first. She was nearly 9 now. Her hair was still in a long braid, but the braid was higher up on the back of her head, in a way Eleanor did not know how to do. But Sophia had been doing herself for almost a year. She was wearing a soccer uniform. We won. You won. 3-1. I scored one of them. Of course you did. Papa says we're going for ice cream. Of course he does. Sal came in behind her. He was in jeans, a grey sweater. His hair was longer than it had been 18 months ago, just slightly. The eyes were the same. The way he looked at her when he walked into a room, that was the same. He came over to the desk. He bent down. He kissed the top of her head. "You worked late. I had a call. Another one, another one." He nodded. He did not ask her to stop. He never asked her to stop. He had figured out very early that the work was not a side thing for her. The work was a thing that lived inside her chest now and could not be put down. "Frank asked about you. How is Frank?" "He is." "Frank, that bad. He says you do not visit enough." "I was there Sunday. I told him that." "He said Sunday is not Tuesday. He is Italian." Logic does not enter into it, she laughed. He sat down on the edge of her desk. He looked at her. He did the thing she liked. He just looked. "Elena." "Yes." "There is a thing." "What thing?" He reached into his jacket pocket. He took out a small box. He set it on the desk. He did not open it. He did not get down on one knee. He did not make a speech. He did not have a violinist hidden anywhere. Sal Bianchi was 40 years old and had buried 2 parents and 1 wife, and a great many other things he did not talk about. And Sal Bianchi did not believe in spectacle. He just put the box on the desk. He looked at her. When you are ready, she looked at the box. She looked at him. Sophia had gone into the waiting room to pour herself a cup of coffee, which was a thing Sophia was not supposed to do, but which Sal had recently lost the argument about. From the waiting room came the sound of a small girl muttering about the coffee creamer. Elena picked up the box. She did not open it. She put it back down. She slid it across the desk, back toward him. "Sal, yes, ask me again in 6 months. 6 months, 6 months." He looked at her for a long beat. His face was very still. Then it did something at the corner of his mouth. A very small thing. The thing his face did when he was about to almost smile, but had decided not to fully smile. 6 months. Yes, you will say yes in 6 months. Maybe. You will, Sal. Elena, I just got me back. I want to enjoy her for a little while first. He looked at her. He nodded. He picked up the box. He put it back in his jacket pocket without opening it. 6 months. Elena Marsh. 6 months, and then you are mine. Officially, and you are mine. Officially, I have been yours since the ballroom. Sal, it is the truth. She did not have a thing to say to that. She got up. She walked around the desk. She put her hands on the front of his sweater. She tilted her face up. He bent his face down. He kissed her. Not the kind of kiss for a daughter to walk in on. Just the kind of kiss for an office on a Tuesday afternoon when somebody has just said 6 months. Sophia walked in from the waiting room. Are you guys gross right now? A little bit. Can we go get ice cream? Yes. Can Winston come? Winston is in the car. Why is Winston in the car? Because Winston goes everywhere. Okay. She turned around and walked back out. They could hear her telling someone, on a phone she was not supposed to have, that her dad had just been weird in Eleanor's office, and she was going to need an extra scoop to recover. Eleanor laughed. Sal smiled. It was a real smile, the kind he did not used to have. He took her coat off the back of the chair. He held it open for her. She slid her arms in. He turned her around. He buttoned the top button himself. They walked out together. She turned out the light. She locked the door. The gold letters caught the late afternoon sun. Marsh Forensics Soluceless. She paused for a second on the landing. She walked down the stairs. She came out onto the street, and the SUV was there at the curb. Tommy in the front, Sophia in the back with Winston, who was older now and white around the muzzle and snoring slightly. The day was bright and cold, and the lake was somewhere to the east, doing what the lake had been doing for 10,000 years. Sal opened the door for her. She got in. The SUV pulled away from the curb. Down the street, past a coffee shop, past a bookstore, past a flower stand where an old man was bringing in his buckets for the night, and Elena Marsh. 32 years old, sat in the warm car with her dog and her almost stepdaughter and her almost husband. 6 months. In 6 months, she would say yes. She knew it. He knew it. The light went from copper to gold. The car turned a corner and drove on. 6 months passed the way good months pass when you are not counting them. Eleanor noticed it in small ways. The way her shoulders no longer climbed up toward her ears when she walked into a room. The way she stopped flinching when a man at the next table laughed too loud. The way she could now stand in front of a mirror in the morning and brush her hair, and not have an opinion about her own face. That last one had taken the longest 3 years of being told a lie. 6 months of being told the truth. It turned out the math was not even. The truth had to be told more times than the lie, because the lie had been said by someone she had once trusted. And trust, even broken trust, leaves a stain. But the stain was lifting. She knew it was lifting because of the morning she stood in the kitchen of Sal's house. 6 months and 1 week after the day she had slid the small velvet box back across her desk, and she caught herself looking at her own reflection in the dark glass of the coffee maker, and she did not look away. That was the morning. That was the morning she knew it was time. She did not tell him right away. She wanted to keep it to herself for a few hours, the way you keep a piece of good news to yourself in the morning, because saying it out loud makes it belong to the day. And she wanted it to belong to her. Just a little longer. She made coffee. She drank it standing up, looking out the window at the small yard where Winston was lying in a square of sun, slower than he used to be, whiter around the muzzle. Almost 13 years old now, and acting like he was 15 on the bad days and like he was 4 on the good ones. This was a good day for Winston. He had eaten his breakfast. He had walked himself outside without help. He was watching a squirrel. Sophia came down the stairs in her pajamas, the same kind she had been wearing the morning Eleanor first met her. Different size now, different pattern. Still pink, still with little white horses on them. Sophia, at almost 9.5 years old, had decided that the pink horse pajamas were a hill she was willing to die on. And Sal had decided he did not want that particular hill. Morning, baby. Is Papa up? Papa is in the garage doing something I do not understand. Cars, probably cars. Sophia poured herself a cup of orange juice with the care of a small surgeon. She climbed onto a stool at the kitchen island. She looked at Eleanor. You are happy today, am I? Yes, how can you tell? Because your shoulders are not all the way up by your ears. Eleanor laughed. She set down her coffee. She reached over and pushed a piece of hair behind Sophia's ear. Sophia let her. Sophia had been letting her do small things like that for almost a year now. The first 6 months, Eleanor had lived in this house, full-time, after the year she had taken just for herself. Sophia had been polite. Sophia had been careful. Sophia had been waiting. Then one Tuesday morning back in April, Sophia had asked her to braid her hair. Eleanor had braided it crooked. Sophia had not said anything about the crookedness. Sophia had worn the crooked braid to school. That had been the day. The day Eleanor knew Sophia had decided. Sophia, yes, I am going to tell your papa something today. What? It's a secret right now. A good secret. A very good secret. Okay, that was it. Sophia did not ask. Sophia, at 9.5 years old, understood about good secrets and bad secrets, about which ones needed to be opened and which ones did not. She drank her orange juice. She climbed down off the stool. She walked over to Winston and lay down on the kitchen floor next to him and put her arm around his ribs. The two of them napped together in the square of sun. Eleanor watched them. The coffee in her cup was getting cold. She did not refill it. She just watched, and she thought about the ballroom, about the way her hand had shaken around the champagne flute, about the woman she had been then, the woman who could not have imagined this kitchen, this child, this dog. This morning, that woman. That woman had been so afraid. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about the navy chiffon dress. She had given it to a women's shelter on the South Side last year. A woman half her size had probably worn it to a job interview by now. The dress had a new life. So did she. She picked up her coffee cup and walked out to the garage. The garage was a big concrete room with 2 cars in it and a third one in pieces. Sal had a thing about old engines. He said it was the one thing he did with his hands that did not involve solving a problem somebody else had created. He was wearing a dark t-shirt and grease-stained jeans, and his hair was pushed back off his face with the back of his wrist. He had a wrench in one hand. He looked up when she came in. Elena, Sal, you have your face on. What face? The face. You have a thing, how do you know? Elena. I have lived with you for 18 months. I know when you have a thing. She came over. She did not sit down. There was nowhere clean to sit down. She just stood in front of him in the cool concrete light of the garage, and she looked at him, and she felt the shape of the thing she was about to say settle in her chest. She had not planned the words. She was going to use whatever came out. Sal's? Yes. Ask me again. He went very still. The wrench did not move. He set it down, slowly, on the workbench. He wiped his hands on a rag. He did it carefully, finger by finger, because he was a man who did everything carefully when something mattered. He looked up. You are sure? I am sure, Elena, Sal. Ask me again. He stepped forward. He did not get on one knee. He had not gotten on one knee the first time, and he was not going to get on one knee now. Sal Bianchi did not do spectacle. Sal Bianchi did things the way old men did them, plainly, once, so you could not mistake it. He took her hand. Elena Marsh, yes, will you marry me? Yes, Elena, yes, Sal's? Yes, he laughed. Then he was kissing her in a garage that smelled like motor oil and old leather, and her hands were on the front of his t-shirt, and his hands were on her face, and there was grease on her cheek from his thumb, and she did not care. She did not care at all. She was laughing into his mouth, and he was laughing into hers, and it was the kind of moment a woman does not get to have twice in her life. The first marriage had been a contract. This was something else. This was a person's choosing another person, with nothing to gain. And everything to give. After a long minute, he pulled back. He looked at her. His thumb traced the cheek that did not have grease on it. You will let me throw you a wedding. A small one. Define small. Less than 50 people, Eleanor. My family alone is more than 50 people. Then we leave some of them out. I cannot leave Aunt Lucia out. Aunt Lucia is in. Aunt Lucia made me that pie. Aunt Lucia has a sister, Sal, and the sister has a husband, Sal, and the husband has a brother who lives in Milwaukee. But who would come? She started laughing. Hard, the kind of laughing that catches in your stomach and makes your eyes water. She buried her face in his shirt and she laughed for almost a full minute, because the idea of her in a wedding dress, surrounded by some unknowable number of Italian people from across 3 states, was so completely different from anything her old life would have allowed. It was the right kind of absurd. When she finally caught her breath, she looked up at him. Frank gets to walk me in. Frank would walk you in if I did not invite him to. Frank has been planning that walk for 18 months. And Sophia drops flowers and probably eats one, almost certainly, and Tommy is your best man. Tommy is going to complain about the suit for 6 weeks. Tommy is going to love every minute of it, yes. He is. She looked at him. She put her palm flat on his chest, right over where his heart was. She could feel it. Slow, steady. The same heartbeat that had been the first thing in this whole story to make her feel safe. The pulse of a man who had survived too many bad nights to be afraid of any small thing anymore. Including marrying her, Sal, yes. I love you, I know you know. I'm telling you anyway, Elena. I have loved you since the ballroom, since you reached for my hand. I will love you until I am buried. and I will love you after that. Wherever you go, I am going. This is not new information. It is to me. Then you have not been paying attention. She started laughing again. He kissed her on the forehead. He kissed her on the mouth. And then he picked up his wrench again and went back to the engine like a man who had just been told the weather report, because that was who Sal Bianchi was. Big moments did not need to be loud for him. They just needed to be true. She walked back into the house. Winston was still asleep in the square of sun. Sophia was reading a book to him out loud, even though her head was on his ribs and her eyes were half closed. Eleanor stood in the doorway of the kitchen and watched the two of them for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone. She called Frank Russo. She said 3 words to him, 6 months. Yes. There was a long pause on the line. Then the old man cleared his throat, and Eleanor heard, for the first time in 18 months of knowing him, the sound of Frank Russo getting emotional. Just a little. The smallest crack in the gravel of his voice. Signora, yes, brava. That was all. Then he hung up, but she could hear, in the silence after, the way he was probably going to sit in his leather chair for the next hour and just look out the window. And maybe pour himself a small glass of something he was not supposed to drink anymore. And maybe lift it to no one, to the empty room, to a story he had been part of since before she was born, which had finally come to the part he had been waiting for. She set the phone down. She walked into the kitchen. She lay down on the floor next to Winston. Sophia did not move. She just shifted her arm so it went around both of them. And the 3 of them, dog and child and woman, lay there in the square of sun for a long, quiet minute, doing nothing, saying nothing, becoming a family. The wedding was 8 weeks later. It was not small. Eleanor had asked for small. Sal had agreed to small. Frank Russo had heard the words small and immediately disregarded them as a translation error. Aunt Lucius had heard the word small and laughed for approximately 90 seconds straight before going back to the phone tree she had started compiling 6 months ago, just in case. By the morning of the wedding, there were 204 people on the property. The property was the old Bianchi estate, 40 minutes north of the city. A house Sal almost never used anymore, but kept because it had been his grandfather's. The grounds were 9 acres of grass and trees, and a long stone wall and a garden in the back that an elderly woman named Rosa had been tending since before Sal was born. Rosa had threatened to quit twice during the planning, both times over flower choices. Both times Sal had bought her a bottle of grappa and apologized. Now it was October, a year and a day, exactly, since the ballroom. Eleanor had not planned that. Sal had not planned that. Frank Russo, when she pointed it out 2 weeks before, had only smiled and said certain things in life arrange themselves. The morning was cool. The kind of October morning where the light has gold in it. Eleanor stood in the upstairs bedroom of the estate, in a dress that was nothing like the navy chiffon dress. This one was ivory, long sleeves, a high neck, lace at the collar that had belonged to Sal's grandmother. The dress fit her. Eleanor weighed exactly what Eleanor weighed. She had not weighed herself in 14 months. She did not know the number. She did not care. Her hair was down. A friend from her old firm had done it. The friend was someone Eleanor had reconnected with the year before, when she had finally felt brave enough to look up some of the people she had let slip away during the marriage. The friend's name was Marguerite. Marguerite had cried when Eleanor called. Marguerite was downstairs now, doing makeup for Aunt Lucia. There was a knock on the door. "Come in." Frank Russo walked in. He was in a black suit. He looked like a man who had been waiting his entire life for this particular morning. His white hair was combed back. His pale, faded blue eye that did not match the other one was wet at the corner. He had a small box in his hand. He closed the door behind him. "Signora, Frank, you look very beautiful." "Thank you. I have a thing. For you, Frank. You don't have to. I do. He handed her the box. It was small, black velvet, the kind a jeweler uses. She opened it carefully. Inside was a thin gold chain with a small medallion on it. The medallion was old. The kind of old where the metal has worn smooth in places. She picked it up. She held it in her palm. What is it? St. Anne. St. Anne, the mother of the Madonna, the patron saint of mothers, of grandmothers, of women who carry the family forward. Eleanor looked up at him. She did not trust herself to speak. It belonged to my mother, Frank said. She gave it to me when I was a boy. She said one day a woman would walk into my life, and I would know her, and I would give it to her, Frank. It was not Sal's mother. May she rest. It was not his first wife. May she rest. I waited. I am 81 years old, Signora. I have waited a long time, Frank. And then you walked into the penthouse. And I looked at you. And I knew. Eleanor's eyes were full. She did not try to hide it. She let the tears come. Slowly. The kind of tears that do not ruin makeup, because they are not panic tears. They are not grief tears. They are the other kind. The kind you do not get to cry very often. Maybe twice in a life. If you are lucky. She lifted the chain. She turned around. Frank fastened it at the back of her neck with hands that were steadier than they should have been at 81. She turned back to face him. He looked at her. He stepped back. He nodded once. Like a man who had finished a piece of business he had been carrying for a long time. Now, he said, "You are ready, Frank?" "Yes." "Will you walk me in, Signora? Will you? I will walk you anywhere you want to go. Until my legs do not work, and then I will have Tommy carry me. But yes, today. I will walk you in," she laughed. The crying stopped. The day began. The garden behind the bushes had been set up with 80 white chairs, arranged on either side of a long stone path. The path led to a small wooden arch covered in white roses. Rosa had made the arrangement personally. There was no aisle runner. Eleanor had said no to the aisle runner. She had also said no to the doves, the harpist, and the man with the violin. Aunt Lucia had tried 3 separate times to sneak into the budget. What she had said yes to was Sophia. Sophia was standing at the front of the path in a small white dress. She had a basket of flower petals. She was barefoot, which she had insisted upon, and Sal had lost the argument about. She was holding hands with a very serious-looking small boy who was the son of Sal's cousin. The boy was wearing a tiny tuxedo. Sophia kept whispering instructions to him. He kept nodding. At the arch stood Nassau. He was in a charcoal suit, the same color as the suit he had been wearing the night they met. Tommy was next to him in a suit Tommy had been complaining about for 6 weeks, exactly as Sal had predicted. Mike, the younger brother who had once been kidnapped because of Eleanor, was on Sal's other side. Mike was holding his 5-month-old baby, who was now almost 2 years old. The baby was named Salvatore Jr. Everybody called him Sully. Sully had a head of dark hair that stuck straight up. He was drooling on Mike's lapel, and Mike was not noticing. There was no music. Eleanor had said no to music too. She wanted to hear the wind in the trees, and the small sounds the garden made, and the way her own heartbeat sounded when she walked toward Sal Bianchi for the first time in a white dress. She wanted no orchestra to do the work that her own choosing was about to do. Frank offered her his arm. She took it. They stepped out onto the back terrace. 204 people stood up at the same time. The grass under Eleanor's feet was real. The sky over the garden was real. The October light was the same light she had grown up in. The same light her mother had told her, in another October a very long time ago, that no small man was ever going to decide the size of her. Eleanor walked. Frank walked beside her. She did not look at the chairs. She looked at Sal. Sal had taken off his sunglasses. Sal was looking at her the way a man looks when he has waited a long time for the morning that finally arrives. The shoulders were the same shoulders she had grabbed onto in a hotel ballroom. The man was the same man. She was the one who had changed. Halfway down the path, Sophia broke ranks. She left the small, serious boy holding the flower basket and ran, in her bare feet, across the grass. She did not run toward Sal. She ran toward Elena. She threw her small arms around Eleanor's waist. She pressed her face into the lace of the dress. The crowd made a small collective sound. Frank stopped walking. Eleanor knelt down, right there in the middle of the path, halfway between the terrace and the arch. She put her hand on the back of Sophia's head. "Sweetheart, I want to walk you in, too." "Okay, with Frank?" "Okay, is that allowed?" "It is allowed. It is allowed because we say it is allowed. That is how it works." Sophia nodded. She took Eleanor's free hand. Eleanor stood up. Frank took her other hand because the arm she had been holding was now being used by a small girl in a white dress and bare feet. They walked the second half of the path that way, an old man on one side, a small girl on the other, a bride in the middle. Eleanor did not look at the crowd because she could not see anything anyway. She was crying again, but smiling, and Frank was muttering something in Italian that might have been a blessing and might have been a curse word. They reached the arch. Sal looked at the small girl on his almost wife's hand. He looked at Frank. He looked at Eleanor. His face did the thing she liked, the thing where it almost smiled but had decided not to fully smile, because if it did, the rest of him might come apart. The priest was a very old man named Father Joseph. Father Joseph had baptized Sal. Joseph had buried Sal's father, his mother, his first wife. Father Joseph had been waiting 18 months to perform this particular ceremony, and he had said so to anyone who would listen. He spoke the words. Sal spoke the words. Eleanor spoke the words. When it came time for the ring, Sal slid it onto her finger. The ring was simple. Gold, no stone. Eleanor had said no to a stone. She did not need a stone. She needed the gold. She needed the circle. He kissed her under the arch. The crowd applauded. Sophia threw the rest of her basket of petals in the air. Sully started crying because of the noise. Frank Russo wiped his eyes with a folded white handkerchief he had been carrying in his breast pocket for 40 years. Eleanor laughed into Sal's mouth. It was done. It was done. She was no longer Elena Marsh. She was Elena Marsh Bianchi. She had kept her name. She had added his. Both. Because both belonged to her now. Because she had chosen it that way. Because the small men did not get to decide the size of her. Not anymore. 5 years later, the light in the new office was different than the light in the old office. The new office was on the 3rd floor of a converted warehouse in the West Loop. Eleanor had bought the building 2 years ago, with money she had earned. The 1st floor was a bakery. The 2nd floor was a law firm specializing in domestic abuse cases. The 3rd floor was Marsh Bianchi Forensic Solutions. The 4th floor was empty. Eleanor was deciding whether to expand or whether to lease it to a non-profit she had been quietly supporting for the last 3 years. She had not yet decided. She had time. She was 38 years old. The morning was bright and very cold. Mid-January. There was snow on the windowsill. Eleanor was in her corner office. The corner office had 2 big windows and a view of the city and a leather chair Sal had bought her for her 35th birthday. She was in the chair. She was holding a cup of coffee. She was on the phone. "Yes, yes, ma'am. Tomorrow at 10. Bring the file. All of it. Even the parts that don't make sense. Yes, yes. I will see you then." She hung up. She wrote the name on her calendar. There were 217 names on her calendar this year. 217 women. The firm had grown. There were now 4 other forensic accountants working under her. 3 of them were women. 2 had come out of bad marriages themselves. They worked harder than anyone Eleanor had ever supervised. They were also kinder. There was a thing about people who had once needed help. They knew how to give it. The door opened. A woman walked in. Tall, late 40s, hair pulled back. Tired, the woman sat down without being asked. She did this because Eleanor had told her, the first time they met, that women in this office did not need to be invited to sit down. They sat. Not the other way around. The woman was named Rebecca. Rebecca had been a client for 4 months. Rebecca's husband had hidden $3.2 million in 7 different shell companies across 2 continents. Eleanor had found 6 of them. The 7th had been giving her trouble. "You found it." "I found it. All of it. All of it." Rebecca closed her eyes. She did not cry. The women who came to this office almost never cried in front of Eleanor. They cried in the elevator afterward, in the car, at home. In front of Eleanor, they sat very straight and nodded and took their files. Eleanor slid a folder across the desk. "Your attorney has a copy. The judge will have a copy by end of day. Your husband will know we have it within the week when his attorney is served. You will need to be somewhere safe for the next 10 days, my sisters." "Good, Eleanor." "Yes. Thank you, don't. I have to. You don't. You really don't. You paid me. We did the work." "That's how it goes, Eleanor. You found me my life." Eleanor looked at her for a moment. Then she said the thing she always said. The thing that had become the thing she said. "You found it." "I just helped you read the map." Rebecca smiled. She picked up the folder. She walked out. Eleanor watched her go. The door closed. She set down her coffee. She turned her chair around so she was facing the window. The snow was coming down a little harder now. The city below was moving slowly, the way cities do in winter. People bundled up. Hats, scarves. Steam coming off the manholes. She thought, sometimes, about the woman she had been at 31. The woman in the navy chiffon dress. That woman could not have imagined this office, this view. The 217 names on the calendar. The 4th floor she was deciding what to do with. The medallion of St. Anne that still hung at her throat under whatever she was wearing. That woman had thought her best life was already behind her. That woman had been wrong. Eleanor sometimes wished she could go back. Just for a minute. Just to crouch down next to her younger self in the corner of that ballroom and put a hand on her shoulder and say something true, like you are about to live, like the next part is the part you came for. But she could not go back. Nobody could go back. The only thing you could do was be the woman now that you would have wanted to meet then. The only thing you could do was leave the door open. She turned back to her desk. She picked up her phone. She called Sal. He picked up on the 2nd ring. "Eleanor." "Sal, are you home soon?" "Soon. Sophia is asking when you will be home. She says it is important." "I am suspicious." "Why are you suspicious?" "Because she is 14. And anything she says is important is either about a boy or about asking for something she knows you'll say yes to and I will say no to." "Sal." "Eleanor, how is your day?" "Long." Frank called 4 times. Tommy called once. Mike called twice about Sully and the dog. Aunt Lucia called and yelled at me about a thing I did 3 years ago. "I have been very busy being everyone's relative," she laughed. "How is your day?" he said. I closed Rebecca's case. "You found it. I found it. All of it. All of it." There was a pause on the line, a small one. The kind of pause Sal did when he was deciding how to say something. "Eleanor, yes, I am proud of you. Sal, I am proud of you. I have been proud of you for almost 7 years. I have never said it out loud enough. So I am saying it now, while you are at your desk, so you can hear it in your office, where it belongs." She had to set the phone down for a second. She picked it back up. "Sal, yes. I love you, I know. I love you. Come home, Eleanor." She hung up. She did not stay at the office. She put on her coat. She walked down the 3 flights of stairs. She came out onto the street. The snow was coming down harder now. Tommy was waiting at the curb in the SUV. Tommy was 40 years old now, and a father of 3, and looked like a slightly older version of the man who had driven her to and from the bank on the morning everything ended. He saw her and nodded. He did not open the door for her anymore. He had stopped doing that 2 years ago after she had told him, kindly, that she could open her own car door, and that if he opened it one more time, she was going to revoke his Christmas present. He had laughed. He had stopped. They got along better after that. He pulled the car into traffic. The drive home took 40 minutes in the snow. The house was a tall stone thing on a quiet street in Lincoln Park. Eleanor had picked it 3 years ago, when they finally decided to leave the penthouse and live more like normal people. The house had a small front yard with 2 old maple trees. The trees had been there before the house. Sal would not let her cut them down, even though one of them dropped acorns the size of golf balls every fall. She came in the front door. The house smelled like garlic and rosemary, and something that had been in the oven too long but was about to be saved by somebody. Sophia was in the front hall. Sophia at 14 was tall, almost as tall as Eleanor. Her braid was now a single thick rope down her back. She was wearing jeans and a hoodie that belonged to her father, because Sophia had decided in the last year that all of her father's hoodies belonged to her now. Sal had not argued. Mum, soft, there is a thing, God, it is not bad. Probably, it is about prom. You are in 8th grade, it is for 8th grade years. Sophia, Mum, Sophia, you are 14 years old. I am almost 15. You are 14 and a half, Mum. Eleanor laughed. She pulled Sophia into a hug. Sophia let her. Sophia at 14 was harder to hug than Sophia at 9 had been, because Sophia at 14 had opinions about being hugged in front of windows and friends and dogs and pretty much anything. But there was nobody in the front hall except the dog, and the dog was barely paying attention. The dog was new. Winston had died in his sleep 9 months ago. He had been 14 years old. He had gone the way old dogs go when they have lived a good life, quietly, in the square of sun in the kitchen, with Sophia sitting next to him, reading aloud to him from a book she had read to him 100 times before. He had taken one long breath and let it out, and that was that. They had all cried. Sal had cried more than Eleanor. That had surprised her. 3 months later, he had come home with a small grey puppy from a shelter and put the puppy in her arms and said, "His name is Carlo." She had cried again, holding the small grey shape against her chest, because Kaljiang Schnanky was a man who knew when to let a thing be over and when to let a new thing begin. Carlo was now a 6-month-old menace. Carlo was currently chewing on Sophia's left shoe. Carlo, do not, Carlo. We talked about this. Carlo did not care. Carlo was a puppy. She walked into the kitchen with Sophia following behind her, holding the half-eaten shoe by the laces and explaining what Carlo's lawyer was going to argue if anyone tried to file charges. The kitchen at the back of the house was Eleanor's favorite room in the world. It was big. It had 2 ovens because Aunt Lucia had insisted. It had a long marble island. It had a window over the sink that looked out at the back garden, where Eleanor had let Sophia plant whatever she wanted, which was now a small chaos of tomato plants and one ambitious squash. Sal was at the stove. He was wearing jeans and a sweater, and an apron Sophia had given him for Christmas that said "World's Okest Chef." Frank Russo was at the kitchen table. Frank was 86 now and walked with a cane and refused to use it. Frank was reading a newspaper. Frank was drinking coffee Sal had told him not to drink. Frank looked up when Eleanor came in. He folded the newspaper. "Signora, Frank, you look tired. I closed a case today." Good. Sit. Drink something." She sat. Sal turned around and set a glass of red wine in front of her without asking. He kissed her on the top of her head. He went back to the stove. She looked around the kitchen. Her family, her husband at the stove, her daughter on the floor trying to wrestle a shoe back from a puppy, Frank in the corner reading the paper, the dog who was not Winston, who was something new and bright, the smell of garlic, the snow on the window. Dinner was the way dinner had been on most ordinary nights for the last few years, loud. A little chaotic. Carlo under the table trying to find a person who would drop something for him. Sophia telling a long story about a girl in her English class that involved at least 3 people whose names Elena did not know. Sal listening to Frank explain why a man named Bruno, who had died in 1974, had been the best driver the family ever had. Elena did not say much. She did not need to. She sat. She ate. She watched. She watched the way Sal cut Frank's chicken into smaller pieces without making it look like he was doing it, the way Sophia tried, twice, to sneak a piece of garlic bread to Carlo and got caught both times. The way Frank, 86 years old, still pretended he did not need the chicken cut up for him, while eating every single piece. This was her life. This was the life she had walked into a hotel ballroom 8 years ago, completely unable to imagine. After dinner, Sophia disappeared upstairs to do homework or to text the boy who Sal pretended did not exist. Frank moved to the leather chair in the den and was asleep within 10 minutes, the newspaper open across his chest. Carlo curled up at his feet, watching him breathe. Eleanor and Sal cleaned the kitchen together. She washed, he dried. They had been doing it this way for almost 5 years. It was not the most efficient way to clean a kitchen. They had a dishwasher. They did not use it for the pots and pans because Sal said the dishwasher ruined the pans, and Eleanor said the dishwasher was fine. And somewhere in the middle of that ongoing argument, they had ended up doing dishes by hand together every night, almost without noticing. He bumped her hip with his. She bumped him back. That was the conversation. When the last pan was dry, he set down the towel. He turned her around. He put his hands on her waist. He looked at her the way he had been looking at her for 7 years, like he was still a little surprised that she was real. Eleanor, yes, you are tired, I am, sit. I will pour you something. She sat at the kitchen island. He poured 2 small glasses of grappa. The grappa was from Aunt Lucia's brother in Milwaukee, the same brother who, 8 years ago, had been one of 204 people at their wedding. He sent them a bottle every Christmas. Sal had told him repeatedly that he did not need to. The brother had ignored him repeatedly. The grappa was, in fact, very good. She lifted her glass. He lifted his. They did not say anything. They did not need to. But across the room, on a small shelf above the kitchen window, there was a photograph in a thin silver frame. The photograph was from the wedding. Eleanor in the ivory dress, Sophia barefoot, Frank on her other arm. The 3 of them halfway down the stone path with the garden behind them. Eleanor looked at the photograph. She thought about the woman in the navy chiffon dress. She had thought about her many times over the years, not every day anymore, but often enough. A small, private ritual, the way some people say grace before a meal. Eleanor said her own quiet thing, not out loud, never out loud, just inside, to the woman she had been, to the hand that had reached out, to the version of her life that had cracked open in a hotel ballroom on October the 11th. She lifted her grappa just slightly, a small tilt. Sal saw it. Sal had been watching her for 7 years. He saw everything. He did not ask. He just lifted his glass the same way. A man toasting alongside his wife to a person only she could see. The clock above the stove said 9:43. The house was quiet now. Frank was asleep in the chair. Carlo was asleep at Frank's feet. Sophia was upstairs with her door closed, doing whatever 14-year-olds do when their door is closed, which Eleanor and Sal had agreed was something they were no longer allowed to ask about. The snow had stopped. Through the kitchen window, Eleanor could see the back garden, Sophia's chaotic tomato plants, the ambitious squash, the bird feeder Aunt Lucia had given them, which the squirrels had owned within a week. The single small bench Sal had built her last summer because she had mentioned in passing that she wanted somewhere to sit and drink coffee in the morning. He had built it without saying anything. She had walked out one morning in July, and there it had been. That was the kind of man he was. That was the kind of man you do not find twice. She finished her grappa. She set the glass down. She looked at him. "Sal." "Yes. Are you tired?" "A little." "Bed." "Bed." He took her hand. They turned off the kitchen light to the den. Sal gently shook Frank's shoulder. Frank opened his eyes. "Francesco." "We are going to bed? Carlo will sleep in your room tonight." "Good. Good dog. He keeps my feet warm. Get up. I will help you to the guest room. I do not need help. I know you do not need help. I am offering it anyway. So I can feel useful," Frank grumbled, but he let Sal help him up. The three of them moved slowly down the hallway, an old man, a husband, a wife, and a 6-month-old puppy trotting behind them with what was left of Sophia's shoe in his mouth. At the guest room door, Frank stopped. He looked at Eleanor. He took her hand. He patted it once, the way he had patted it that first morning in the kitchen of the penthouse. 8 years ago, when she had been a woman in a stranger's robe eating eggs at a marble island, not knowing if she was going to live through the week. "Signora, yes, you did good today. I had a case, I know. I heard. Salvatore told me. You did good. You always do good." He squeezed her hand. Then he let it go. He went into the guest room. Carlo followed him in. The door closed behind them. Eleanor stood in the hallway for a moment. She put her hand on the wall. She breathed. Sal was beside her. He did not say anything. He just put his arm around her shoulders. Heavy, warm, the same arm that had gone around her in a ballroom on a rainy October night 8 years ago, and had never really left. They walked upstairs to their bedroom. The bedroom faced the back garden. There was a tall window. The window was open just an inch. Cold air was coming in. Eleanor liked it that way. She had grown up sleeping with the window cracked. Hollis had hated it. Hollis had closed it every night when he came to bed. For 3 years she had slept in stale air and pretended it did not matter in this house. The window was cracked in this house. A woman slept the way she wanted to sleep. She took off her work clothes. She put on the soft cotton nightgown that was hers. Not a thing chosen by anyone else. Not a thing chosen to please anyone. Just a thing she had bought because she liked it. Sal got into bed in a t-shirt and sweatpants. He pulled back the covers. She climbed in. He put his arm around her. She put her head on his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, the same slow, steady heartbeat that had been the first thing in this whole story to make her feel safe. 8 years it had been beating like that. Slow, steady, always there. The pulse of a man who had been through more than she would ever know and had decided at some point to spend the rest of his life beside her. "Sal, yes. Are you happy?" He thought about it. He always thought about it. He did not throw answers around. "Yes," he said. "I am, even with the loud dinners. And Sophia's prom drama, and Frank making me crazy about Sunday versus Tuesday. Even with all of it. Especially with all of it, Sal, yes, I am happy too. I know you know. I'm telling you anyway, Eleanor. Yes, go to sleep." She laughed. She did not go to sleep right away. She lay there for a long while, listening to his heartbeat, listening to the wind in the maple trees outside, listening to the small sounds of a house full of the people who belonged in it. She thought about Winston. She thought about her mother. She thought about a fall afternoon when she had been 8 years old, and a boy at school had called her chubby, and her mother had crouched down to her level, and her mother had said, "Eleanor, you listen to me. You do not let small men decide the size of you. You do not ever let them." Eleanor had carried that sentence with her, hidden, like a small flame in a pocket, for almost 25 years. There had been times she had almost lost it. There had been a marriage when the flame had been nearly snuffed out. But it had been there. It had been there the night her hand reached across a hotel ballroom and grabbed onto a stranger. It had been there in a coffee shop on Halstead when she had picked up her coat and walked out on a friend who had sold her. It had been there in a marble lobby, when she had looked up at the man who had called her penny pathetic and told him her real name. It had been there at the end of a stone path in a garden when she had taken Frank's hand on one side and a small girl's hand on the other and walked toward the rest of her life, the flame. She would pass it to Sophia, slow, one sentence at a time, over the next many years. Don't let small men decide the size of you, baby. Don't ever. That was the inheritance. That was the whole thing. Eleanor closed her eyes. Sal's heartbeat was steady against her cheek. Somewhere downstairs, Carlo dropped what was left of Sophia's shoe in the guest room, where Frank Russo was already snoring. Somewhere upstairs, Sophia was probably texting a boy she shouldn't be texting at this hour. Somewhere out beyond the window, the snow was lying soft on the maple trees in the yard. Eleanor breathed in. She breathed out. She thought, just one more time, about the woman in the navy chiffon dress, the woman who had been so afraid, the woman who had reached out anyway. That woman had been brave. Eleanor had wanted for years to find a way to thank her, to tell her, somehow, that the reaching had been worth it. That what came after was every bit as good as she had quietly hoped on the nights when she had thought she would never have a good thing again. She did not know how to thank her. She had thought about it many times. In the end, she had decided that the only way to thank that woman was to be this one, to live this life, quickly fully. Without Abba's apology for a long time, Eleanor opened her eyes one more time. She looked at the small sliver of moonlight on the bedroom ceiling. She listened to the steady heart under her cheek. Then she closed her eyes again, and she slept. And outside, in the dark, the city she had been born in kept being a city, and the snow kept falling, and in 1,000 other kitchens and bedrooms and back gardens, women a little older than her and a little younger than her were quietly carrying their own small flames in their own small pockets. Some of them would never need to use them. Some of them would for all of them. The flame was the whole thing.